Hey, what's going on, guys? Battle Nations Emperor here, back today with another video. And today, guys, we have a new concept, something we've never really done more on the channel before, and something I would like to do more of, and we're starting it off with the good one. So this is going to be based nothing on fact, nothing that's actually already in the game, but potential content, future content, basically stuff that we think would be cool to see in the future. And I think we have a pretty cool concept here, and that is Battle Nations in space. So there's a whole lot to discuss here. We're about to jump into it, but before we did, I just wanted to thank everybody who recommended this video as an idea in the comments below. And there was a lot of people doing it because in Battle Nations 3 buildings we'd like to see, there was a concept I proposed, a starport, which would basically let you and the gang travel space. And that's what this video is, and this concept was so good it got its whole dedicated video right here, because I think there's a lot to explore here. A lot of people messaged me on Reddit, Discord, and of course right here on YouTube, saying that it would be a cool idea. I appreciate everybody who did, and everybody who's watching right now who's interested in this concept. So without any further ado, let's jump right into what would be Battle Nations in space. So where does this concept originate from? So as I said in that video, I'm a big Angry Birds fan, and genuinely I just think one of the best sequels of all time is Angry Birds Space. Of course, Angry Birds would kind of fall off at the end there, just going in all sorts of directions, none of them really capturing the success of the first few. However, Angry Birds in Space, all in all, in my opinion, was a perfect sequel. It just capitalized what Angry Birds in that 2010s, vibe was at the time. It gave us, basically the same game, but so different with a unique space vibe that it genuinely was fun. It was exciting. It was thrilling. And the gravity just worked so well. They gave you, of course, all of your regular birds, but now they had a new space power. Genuine stuff like that. So am I proposing the same thing for Battle Nations, a completely different game? Yes, I am. Reason being is because even though the games are different, I feel the vibe would work the same. You have a very cool base game everybody loves, extremely popular. One was as popular as it should be. One is extremely underpopulated in my opinion, but now has the potential to reprove itself, so we'll see, of course, how that goes. However, both of them benefited from going to space, or one did go to space and benefited from it greatly, and the other I feel could benefit from going into space. So how would you even go to space in Battle Nations in the first place? Well, I imagine, in my opinion, mid to late game, somewhere around level 35 to level 50, wherever you want to put it, I'd say. So, mid to late game, going into later game, you're given the opportunity to construct a starport, or a launch pad, if you will. And all this is simple facilities, simple production to get a rocket into space. It's very expensive. It should be a lot of gold, a lot of resources, and a lot of gears and bars, various sorts of other resources like that. I'm not sure what the exact prices should be. If you do, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your estimations. However, for me, I would say it depends less on the actual resources itself and more just making sure at whatever level you're building it at, it is a difficult challenge. Of course, if you make it unlockable at level 30, it needs to be easier to get than if you made it unlockable at level 50, wherever we as a community wanted to put it. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing I'm trying to say is this: we have to make sure it is a challenge. I want you to be working hard to get this thing. Basically, I'm not sure how it is now, but back in Clash of Clans, getting one of the two heroes, the Barbarian King and especially the Archer Queen, was a challenge. If you got them early on in the day, it was a sign of pride. Because that Barbarian King was 10,000 Dark Elixir, and that Archer Queen was 40,000 Elixir. It was such a monumental task. I have it memorized over a decade later, and I haven't touched Clash in like over 4 years. I still play on and off with Clash Royale like a heroin addiction, going back to the needle from time to time, relapsing. But point being is, peak Clash of Clans, Battle Nations, what I think both of them did best and what I think they encapsulated was making their prize units a challenge. Of course, for Battle Nations, that was boss strikes and tier 10s. And for Clash of Clans, that was unbelievable amounts of grinding for obscure, rare resources that eventually granted you a cool unit, building, or item. And what I feel this would be is, once you, finally build that launch pad, once you've saved up all these resources and grinded out this, good little bit, and, it should, of course, land somewhere in between the match of, above it being, a challenge. You want to make sure it's a challenge, but you then, of course, don't want to make it tedious. I don't want anybody to be, bored of this so much that they don't do it. Basically, we all grind out R6 WIMPs because R6 WIMPs are amazing. They are certainly worth the grind. The grind could be twice as long. We'd all still do it because at the end of the day, you're getting R6 WIMPs. That's what this needs to be. It needs to be a grind, but of course, at the end of the day, it needs to be worth it. So how would it be worth it? Well, after you finally get all the golden resources, you finally build that bad boy, you get your first mission log, and it is you and the crew going into space. I think it should be pretty simple. I think like the first few missions should take place on the moon. You get on the moon, it's a moon ride, just like SpongeBob, and as you're going through, basically you're all just having a good time. You're being introduced to the moon environment. Of course, like I said in the last video, which I'll expand a little bit more briefly here, I think there should be an oxygen system in all battles, i.e. if your units aren't indoors and aren't fighting in buildings, if they're fighting in the openness of space, I feel they should all be forced to have a spacesuit on, or if not, they take damage every single turn. I basically just think about the concept in Borderlands the pre-sequel. TLDR, if they don't have oxygen, they take damage from it. Pretty self-explanatory stuff in my opinion. So going on, you discover these new unique resources. You discover these few unique buildings because even though there are hundreds of different buildings in the base game of Battle Nations, and even though there are hundreds of different of units in the base game of Battle Nations, I feel there should only be a handful of new units on the moon and in space. Here's why. I don't want the devs to be over cumbersome or feel like this has to be a second game. Absolutely not. Battle Nations in space should always focus on making the base game of Battle Nations better. Basically, think of the builder-based system in Clash of Clans. For anybody who doesn't know that, very simple. I can very quickly cover it. It's basically a smaller secondary base that they explain by as being on a different island in the Clash lore. And that's pretty much it. It has its own unique buildings, its own unique troops. Not nearly as much as your main base and, the one you've been playing, ever since the start. But it has a fraction of those, buildings and units. However, every single one of them is unique. Every single one of them has their own cool and awesome feel. And every single one of them feels like they deserve to be there. It's great. And that's what I feel should be the moon base. I feel it should have maybe 2 new unique resources. And, you don't need a new stone, iron, wood, coal. You don't need all of those. All you need is just, maybe like 2, maybe even 3 if you feel, confident enough. New unique resources. Alright though, so you get all of these new resources, you get these few unique buildings, you even get your whole new mini base on the moon. Cool. What's the point of going up here? Why should I want to go up here? And the simple explanation for that should be space stuff. I mean, just the cool, unique stuff you could find in space. You could find rare alien artifacts. You could get zero gravity stuff, and we already have a zero gravity tank, so totally the concept already exists within Battle Nations itself of zero gravity technology. You just have all of these cool, unique sci-fi weapons, maybe even a few new battle weapons. And of course, like I said, a dozen new unique units, and all space units should be able to bring back to Earth. So i.e. you should bring all your moon units back down to your main base and be able to use them in, regular battles, boss strikes, what you name it. However, all units from Earth should not be able to go to space. So it shouldn't be non-transferable back up. That's simply because some of them can't survive the harsh conditions of space. But if a space unit can survive the harsh conditions, of the moon, of, the outer space, then it can survive on Earth. That's at least my thought process going into it. So yeah, I think that would be a cool drive to go in there. You go in there, you get these new unique resources, that way you kind of separate the economies of your main base and your, moon base. And then you could expand it further, maybe we could do it, patch by patch, where we add Mars, we add the entire solar system, we add Pluto, we add the funny name one, we add all of these bad boys, and then, heck, we could just go all the way out if we go, white holes, we could go black holes, we could go, multiverses. We could take it however far we wanted. Maybe not multiverses, I feel that would be a bit pushing it, at least with the understanding it would be its own unique thing. But going to different planets I think would be cool. Being able to, find different planets and just colonize them and, expand, your own version of, your own empire across, the Battle Nation space. I think in and of itself could be a cool concept as well. So just that thought of having your own base in this whole new frontier of exploration, and the simple drive to get better stuff for your main base, and also to have another unique series of storyline missions, stuff you can go into in and of itself. I think you have to have the main cast to make this work. I definitely want to see Morgan, Ramsey, Zoe, Perkins, Floyd. I want to see all of my characters up there. However, I do of course want to see some unique alien units. I want to see some unique humans. Obviously, I don't think we should be the only humans up there. Maybe even have some rebels up there. Maybe even have some Silver Wolves up there. It just depends on, what would make sense, how they could explain it in the story. And then have a little overarching theme. Maybe we all team up. Maybe we team up with some Silver Wolves, Raiders, or, all of our enemies of Earth to overpower the aliens. Because, hey, at least we're all human. Maybe we team up with some humans there to take care of the moon because it's about to explode from a bomb within it. Something silly like that I feel could definitely work as well. Maybe if you don't take itself as seriously. And I mean, what's the worst that happens? You ignore the storyline, the moon blows up, and, well, then you're just back on your own base. No problem lost. At least you still have your own Battle Nations base. So, to completely take it wherever they want to go, of course, this is so open-ended. Obviously, it's a complete theory video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys would want. I would love to hear any space inventions you have. Personally, as long as they had, basic space laser guns and the concept of, zero-gravity tech, what already exists in Battle Nations. Dude, I'm cool. I'm set. I think it would be an awesome expansion to do, however they wanted to run it. So that's my idea. Last thing I want to cover, already covered the combat system, already covered what the base would look like, some unique buildings, some unique units. Last thing I want to add, what would be the full extent? What would be late term, base, moon base, Battle Nations, if you will, my idealized version? For me, I feel you should have maybe its own matchmaking system. Like I said, it would obviously have its own units, maybe have its own 1v1 PvP system. I feel that could be a huge part of Battle Nations if they want to lean into it. And I feel it's not really much you gotta do, just make a good PvP system, and I feel that system will create itself. I feel there's a whole realm of esports that could have within Battle Nations, just from how the game's set up. I still kind of can't believe Clash Royale and Siege became such big esports, especially CSGO. But looking back, CSGO definitely had the potential from the start. But something like Clash Royale, and it's a great esport, genuinely. If you like Clash Royale, you have to admit, it is a fun esport. So, yeah, I think there's massive potential for that in Battle Nations. Just, the competitive scene of it in 1v1, I think has massive potential. And I think on the moon, you can make it more casual. You could have, 1v1 randoms. You could have ranked 1v1. And I think the end goal would just be your own little miniature version of your own base on the moon with unique units, unique buildings, and just an overall space vibe and theme. And that will just about do it for us today, guys. Just wanted to make this video. I thought it was a little bit of a cooler concept. Multiple people mentioned it. A lot of people said they wanted a theorized video just exclusively, no facts, no, hard evidence from the Wikipedia, just stuff we could see in the future. Because Battle Nations has been, again, I think I've already said this, before, but I'm just going to say it again, probably multiple more times going in the future as well. I love the new content we've already gotten. Again, the only real new content we've gotten from Madrona Games in modern day 2025 Battle Nations is just the Diamond Tank and Plasma Mammoth. But again, for being Patreon exclusive, these guys are amazing. The Plasma Mammoth is just its own standalone, beautiful mammoth. And then the Diamond Tank, a lot of us were, theorizing it was probably just going to only be a retextured gold tank, which in and of itself is just, a model of the heavy tank. And that was going to be it. But instead of just being that, it was a beautiful, well-designed, unique diamond tank. It's beautiful. And that gives me high hopes for future, unique, exclusive Madrona Games content, because I think they're going to hit it out of the park. I think it's going to be great, and I can't wait to see what that is. Of course, I don't think it'll be Battle Nations in space, of course. I think they'll probably try to go for something much more grounded, maybe finish up some of the storylines that were never finished in the original Battle Nations. I think that would be the safest bet. Literally just tie up some of the storylines that were never touched on. There's half of the Silver Wolf leadership that's dead, and then the other half was just never concluded on. We got halfway through the Raider storyline and then stopped at the very end, which we covered in the previous video right before this one on the Raider lore breakdown. And yeah, it was just a whole bunch of storylines that were really good, were really fun, but they just completely stopped it in their tracks when unfortunately Battle Nations was shut down, and we just never got a conclusion on it. I think the easiest slam dunk would be for Madrona Games to just come in here, finish those up, and then maybe, go with some crazier ideas like Battle Nations in space, or maybe a completely new idea. If you have your own concept of what you think that could be, let me know in the comments down below. What did you think of Battle Nations in space? What futuristic space tech would you like to see in Battle Nations? What unique concept of Battle Nations you personally would you like to see? Again, anything Battle Nations down in the comments below, more than welcome to hear it out. I would love to hear it out, in fact. And yeah, guys, if you're still watching this, I greatly appreciate you for watching this crazy Battle Nations theory video, Battle Nations in space, all the way through. Thank you very much for watching it. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider dropping a like down below and subscribing to the channel if you are new. If you have any questions, suggestions, of course, anything Battle Nations related, welcomed in the comments below. And that will do it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a great rest of your day.